Desirable. I do what I want when I want and how I want it. Leave you with the one in the air. That's how I roll. I got tons of soul. I'm a true collectible. Famous, so famous, number one desirable. I do what I want when I want and how I want it. Leave you with the one in the air. That's how I roll. I got change to throw. I don't care about no gold. Better, so much better, flipping incredible. Always on the show, so they know that I still got it, and I never feel sorry. Yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world. When I hear him come like my fuse and then ba-bum. Later, see you later, I'm about to blow this up. You can sing my song if you want, I know you want it. It's always kinda funny, yeah, cause you I know I'm a superstar on the sky to lead you on. Haters gonna hate, it's a proof of how they love.
Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, the home of our originally created series, My Story. This is Series 2, episode number 5. Ace Podcast Nation, of course, your home to many great shows and series featuring top guests, expert analysts and more. My Story, like all our other shows and series, is available in video format at youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Please do subscribe, click that bell for notifications every time we go live or upload new content. We've got shows on all sorts of subjects, including live football shows Monday and Friday, plus wrestling shows, MMA and boxing shows, plus the originally created shows which vary on Sunday, with include My Story, mental health in sport. We've done 2 series of that, as well as conspiracy theories and all different subjects, always with lots of interesting guests. And of course, if you prefer your audio podcasts, you can get them at the usual radio or podcast platforms. Just search Ace Podcast Nation at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever it may be, Amazon, and you'll find over 400 shows on various subjects. But the My Story series is unique. We take our guests through their life and career from birth, upbringing, all the way up to present day, as they share memories and anecdotes along the way. Series 1 featured actors, footballers, broadcasters, authors, and more. And Series 2 will be absolutely no different. The tagline is simple: real conversations with real people. And my guest today is ex-Wales international, former Cardiff City, Swansea City, and Crystal Palace midfielder, Mr. David Giles. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Simon. Very good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this, David. Obviously, as we record this, we had you on the Andy Campbell Football Show, which is live every Monday. Just this past Monday, which was really enjoyable. Once we evaded the technical issues in the first sort of 20 minutes or so, but it was still a very enjoyable show. We had chatted a lot about all sorts of different subjects. Really, we went on, had a bit of chat on some of the modern news and also a bit on your career and stuff. But this one's all about you, so we'll see now. But yeah, so what I like to do with this one, David, is, as I explained, we're just going to go from the start. Really, what I like to just do is get you to tell us, where you're from, your upbringing. Let's get a little bit of a feel about the start of David Giles's life.
Right, okay, Simon. Yes, so it all started for me. I was born in Grangetown. A lot of Cardiff people know that area. 66 Dorset Street. And that's where I grew up and went to school. Went to a school called Courtmead Junior School, which is no longer there now. It's been knocked down. Like a lot of old Victorian schools, they're flats or houses or whatever they do with them. But yeah, it's and football was always a passion from a young age. And I things that I remember as a young kid was watching as a 9-year-old with my father, watching the 1966 World Cup finals, and being so excited, actually supporting England and wanting England to do well. And, knew every one of those players' names, and they were superstar players, and I looked up to them guys, because what they did to win the World Cup, and England and no other British country has done that, in the time. So yeah, I started. I made my football debut, if you like, for Courtmead Junior School at the age of 7. The school teacher, Mr. Caddy, he saw something in me in the playground when there was about 160 kids chasing this one tennis ball and trying to kick it around and score either end. And we used to march 20 minutes it took to get to the local playing field, which I say local playing. A lot of people, from Cardiff will know it's called Seven Oaks Park, or they called it the Tan. Apparently, long before I was born, it was a tannery, which was like a leather works, where they used to process leather there. And a lot of boys started playing football over there, and that's where I met Phil Dwyer. And we used to, Phil's a little bit older than me, but we used to knock around and play football over there. So that was enjoyable. And then going to Fitzallen High School, which again was another great school for football. Sadly, he's dead now. Wally Carter was the sports teacher. Wally, yeah.
He was my coach for Glamorgan Cricket. He selected me and, scouted me, I suppose it would be, for lack of a better term. And and his son used to play on the team as well. But Wally Carter, he had a big influence on me playing cricket, keeping on playing cricket after my teens. That's
Yeah, he was. Well, listen,
popular figure in Cardiff, wasn't he?
He was, and Wally was actually a rugby player. Wally has he's got a record. He kicked the winning 3 points when Penarth beat the Barbarians.
Right.
In rugby, going back a long time. Over this period now, Easter, the Barbarians would play a couple of fixtures. They'd play Penarth, they'd play Cardiff, and normally Newport. But I think it was always Good Friday, and then of course Wally was teaching in school, and it was fantastic when he came into school. He was a second row, but he took the goal kicks as well. Mm-hmm. There's not many people do that, but I remember as well knowing a lot about his cricketing experience, and he was a very, very good cricketer. So yeah, someone like yourself, Simon, who played cricket, he wouldn't just pick people for the sake of it. You had to have ability, with Wally, because he wanted to help you and develop you. So again, going to Fitzallen, that he was a massive help, a big influence on me as well, and he had me playing as a 15-year-old for the under 18s, the senior side, and sure. You gain a lot of experience with that as well, and that's when I started going to Cardiff City. Well, actually, I started going to Cardiff. I was spotted by the late Harry Parsons, who's a legend at Cardiff City in Ninian Park, was involved with the club for over 50 years, and the amount of players that guy actually found. I think even people like John Toshak, Peter Sayer, Brian Attlee, myself, Phil Dwyer, loads of Cardiff lads that he brought through, and went down there and started training. But it wasn't academies back then, Simon. It was amateur night, they used to call it, because obviously, you're just schoolboys, amateurs. It was on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and you'd be training with lads of 14, 15-year-olds. There was no separation, and I was the only lad there of 10 years of age. Probably the closest to me was somebody who would be 13. There was about 25 of us. We'd be coached by one of the first team players. But you can imagine you get knocked about, and boys at 14 and 15, they didn't hold back against me. No. They roughed me up and knocked me about, but it stood me in good stead for later on. But I always remember Harry saying to me, he said, "Look, have you got a friend? Have you got someone that's a decent footballer that you can bring along? It'll be better for you if you can come with someone you know." I said, "Yeah, I'll bring him next week." So anyhow, went home, and actually it was my brother, Paul, who played for Cardiff City as well. He made the grade. So I took Paul down there with me. Harry didn't realise, but Paul was only 7. So you got me 10, Paul 7. So what they had to do when you went in to register, you had to go into the treatment room. You had to stand on the weighing scales, and then they had a facility there. Then they would measure how tall you were. So Paul, he said, right, stand on there. Paul took his name. He took his weight. I think he was about just under 4 stone. He was 4'2" in height. And Harry said to him, "What position do you play in?" He said, "Centre forward." So Harry laughed his head off. But in all fairness, Paul stuck with it and he stayed there, and Paul came right the way through. But going back with myself, it kept me happy. And as a 15-year-old, I developed, got into the Cardiff City U team at 16. And then all of a sudden you're playing in the Welsh League. Now that was tough, Simon, because going back in the day, it's not about now, but it was a good league, really. Cardiff were in it, Swansea were in it, Newport were in it, and all the local teams, Barrytown, Bridgend Town, Haverfordwest, teams from up the valleys, you know, and you, when I say there was a bit of stick flying around, a bit of kicking there, there certainly was. And you get the odd old fullback, you know, the 16, 17-year-old kid who's dribbling and running past him, and all of a sudden they'd have a little word in your ear and say, "If you do that again, son, I think you'll be sending for an ambulance because you won't be able to walk." But certainly it was in a different tone than that.
Yeah.
But listen, you had to get used to that. You either dealt with that or you were put off, and you know, it's something that you didn't like. But from there I progressed. Then all of a sudden at 17, and this was exciting, the old combination league, playing for Cardiff City. It was a reserve league. You had the London teams in it were Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea, West Ham. You know, so you're playing on the grounds. You didn't play at some training pitch or whatever. So I'm actually at 16, 17, I'm playing at Highbury, I'm playing at White Hart Lane, Stamford Bridge. You know, and you walk
Amazing.
out. There's nobody there, but you get this feeling, I want to come back. And I want to do this again. I want to be here, Upton Park. You know, I've never seen a ground so tight, so close. You could be on the touchline and literally touch the hoardings, you know, where the fans were standing. And I did go back and played in those grounds when, you know, when the stadiums were full. And you know, but the upbringing of playing in that reserve league or the combination league, and I always remember playing for Cardiff City. With a reserve team fixture, we played Tottenham Hotspur at home. It was the first appearance. Their manager, Keith Birkinshaw, they just signed Ozzy Ardiles and Ricky. There was two of them anyway, but Ozzy Ardiles was the main guy. I'll try and think of the other guy's name in a minute. And they actually turned out for Tottenham reserves, and there was 7,000 turned up at Ninian Park. And God, the atmosphere, you know, it was 7,000. None of us young players had ever played, you know, in a ground with Ricky Villa. Yes, sorry, yeah, Ricky Villa, who was an Argentinian international as well, and you know. But in going back in that time, I played against people like Charlie George, you know, Peter Osgood, Alan Hudson. Because if they were if they were injured, they would play in the reserves. And I think that's something that's missing in football now, because I think these academies, as good as they are, and technically they develop the players brilliant, but players need to learn or to be exposed at an early age to a bit of physicality.
100%.
And they don't get that anymore.
Yeah, 100%. I know. On Monday we talked a bit with Andy about like the youth systems generally, but just talking about like what you mentioned there about Mr. Parsons finding so many players over the years. I think that's something which is lacking in the modern game. I think it's something which is lacking in Cardiff and the surrounding areas. Like my two boys have been in and out of sort of Cardiff's development system and Taffswell. Then, you know, they've been developing. The one boy's 16, the other's 12. And with the Cardiff system particularly, you've got the academy, which is obviously run by the football club. But then under that, you've got an advanced development centre, which is run by the Cardiff City Foundation. And on paper, it sounds like a good idea because is the people who don't quite get into the academy trials, they send to the development centres so they can keep an eye on them. They can train them with, professional coaches. But for me, having seen it now for probably 5-6 years, I don't buy into it, because I don't think there's any intention. They might get the odd player who turns up and he's very, very special. Like, he's so much better than everyone else and he's gone straight up to the academy. But the ones who are not quite ready for the academy, they dangle the carrot. They never do anything with it. And of course, the parents are still forking out 40 quid or whatever it is every 6 weeks. And look, don't get me wrong, I know the facilities, the coaches, everything's got to be paid for. I get that completely. But it did feel after a while like there's no chance of progression. That's demoralizing. And what I'm only speaking from my personal experience. What I didn't like about it is my 12-year-old, who was at the time 9, was told by one coach, right, you've been so good recently, you've really improved. We're going to move you up to the next level from next week. The next week, there was a different coach there. And I was there the next week. And I said, look, can we discuss, he's been told he's going to go up next week. So I need to know where it is. I need to know what we've got to do. What's he need to bring? And he said, I don't think he's ready for that. And I was fuming, not because he hadn't been moved up.
No.
What I didn't like is if they weren't sure or if they were discussing it, they should have discussed it with me, not him. So he's excited, telling his friends, and I've been put in the academy and I'm very, I've improved, and all the things that kids do because they want to be professional footballers. And I didn't like that side of it. And also I feel like they miss out on so many players. I see players playing Parks football on a Saturday, and I think you speak to their parents, or they'll speak to the boys will be speaking, and they're not in academy systems, not even in Welsh league teams. And like, don't get me wrong, like my older boy had played for Tapswell last season and the season before, and they're in the Welsh league now. There's no Cardiff and Swansea in there and Wrexham, but Barry and all those teams are in there. And the standard is exceptional, like in the older age groups, considering it's not quite it's not quite Cardiff and Swansea and all these teams.
Yes.
It's a very good level, but I feel that there's a lot of players missing, slipping through the net, who would be good enough. And when I go back to when I was 16, sort of taking it back to Wally Carter and cricket and football, for me, like when I was 14, when I was about 15, I got spotted in football but I'd never been spotted before that. And then 15 is quite late, really, to have, to be spotted for the first time. So I went and trained with the, South Wales School of Excellence, which I suppose would be the equivalent of these development centres now, where you've got proper coaches. But the difference was, when we played games, we played against Wolves and Spurs and all these teams, like their academies. You soon found out if you were good enough. And they soon found out if you were good enough, because you were playing the best boys in the country. And on the cricket front, Wally Carter he had spoken to my coaches at my club, and I was playing men's cricket on a Sunday and a Saturday for about age 12. And
that's fantastic.
Petrifying at first.
Yes, it is. I know what you're saying. But
definitely. I'm not sure. I would think that you'll probably agree, but because where you were in there at age 10, playing with boys older than you, like when I was in the men's teams, age 12, 13, keeping wicket against men, within a year, I was far better than anyone else in my age group. In my school or whatever, because I was playing with grown men.
Of course you will.
Every weekend, and you have to adapt. It takes a bit of time, of course. Was that the same for you?
Listen,
when you're playing with older boys?
Listen, you just hit the nail on the head. Cricket, football, although one sport where you hit the ball, catch the ball, and football, we kick it and head it. It's the same principle, really. It's the pace. Are you playing with men? That ball is coming down the wicket a lot quicker than it is when you're playing with schoolboy lads. So you learn to deal with that. And it's the same in football. When boys of 14, 15 are passing to a 10-year-old, it's coming at you a lot quicker. So you have to adjust your feet, your body to get in line with the ball to control it. So it does bring you on quickly, Simon. But going back to what you said, I don't believe in these. You've got these academies, and then you've got the not the centre of excellence. What do they call them now, Simon?
Development centre.
Development. Absolute nonsense. I tell you what, I'm totally against that, because I think they exploit parents with money. Yes, coaches and everything got to be paid, but that's all it is. Because I've never known that anyone, I may be wrong, but I've never known a lad come out from at the development centre and go into an academy. Yes. And also, you as parents, or the parents, they should be playing or at least having some kind of a get-together with the kids of their same age who are in the Cardiff Academy and seeing how good they are against them. And as a parent, if I had a lad like that, and he's playing against another midfield player, I go, oh, this kid is head and shoulders above my lad. I'll put my hands up.
You can taper your expectations, can you?
Of course you can.
You can kind of like, not sugarcoat it, but you can when they say I want, I'm going to be a professional footballer, for instance, you can taper and you can say, oh look, there's millions of kids who want to be footballers, and you can bring down the expectations. Whereas if you've got someone telling you, they're good enough, they just need to work on this, or they just need to be a bit more sensible, or whatever it may be, they need to, we just want them to fill out a bit. If that's all that's missing, and that's what you're being told, and that's what the child's being told, then of course that's what you're reinforcing, and you never see them against the boys who are already in there.
Exactly.
So you can't see the difference. And and of course the academy boys don't play on a Saturday for the Parks teams anymore. They're not allowed.
No,
so
exactly.
You never even see them on a Saturday versus one or two of these boys. It's so I look, again, I only speak for myself, but I think they're designed to make money, not to develop footballers.
No, certainly not. And listen, again, if you're in a development centre, and there's some good players there.
Good coaching. I will give them that. There's some phenomenal coaches who I consider friends now, who I've met from those different centres and academies. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. There's some great coaches. They're just doing their job, though. It's the people who are in charge who I believe are, like I said, it's the money.
Well, they're not doing their job, Simon.
They're not finding players, are they?
No, listen, and that's been a big problem with Cardiff City for a long, long time now, and I'm really surprised how the club have let it go this long. Because I think I said the other night when I was on with yourself and Andy that I was that Cardiff kid that came through the system, along with Brian Attlee and Peter Sayer and Phil Dwyer, and many others before us, and certainly, and then you got Joe Ledley and people. I may be wrong, but someone told me that Joe Ledley is actually the last Cardiff boy to come through the youth or the academy, the youth system, and to play for the first team.
Yeah, strictly Cardiff. I think he might be, because Aaron Ramsey's from
Blackwood, is it? He's up that way to
Philly or Blackwood or something like that. Obviously, then you've got like Chris Gunter came through at the same time as Joe Ledley, and I think he's born in Newport or something like that.
Newport, he's Newport,
I'm trying to think who's come through recently. But the problem is, no one has come through recently.
No. So
and
really,
I think, sorry, Dave, I was going to say, the boys who've come through this season, I think a lot of them have been brought in from other academies anyway.
I was going to say, now that's the other problem you've got. And I know a lot. Well, you know him as well. He's an ex-player, Lee Jarman.
Yes.
And Lee was doing a bit of coaching down there. He's stepped away from there now because he said he didn't like the in the classrooms and all the video work and stuff like that. It's that's how the game has changed. But he said, Johnny, the game has completely changed. He said, when we were kids, and listen, good luck to the boys now, but you normally find the kids who were going to come through were not the privileged kids. They were from the council estates. They were the kids whose parents really didn't have a great deal. They were hungry for success. He said, you go to the Cardiff City Academy now, and on an academy night, the car park is just full of Mercedes, BMWs, you know, and these kids are walking into training with Louis Vuitton bags, you know, 11, 12 years of age. And I think that's where, for me, football is gone the wrong way. It's not about what you got, what your father's got. You know, your father is friendly with the coaches and whatever. It should always be down to the boy's ability. And if there's a kid with a better ability, because I guarantee you, Simon, there's kids in the development centre who are better than the ones in the academy.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
But they never get that chance.
No, because those boys have settled into that team. And this was a problem, by the way, going back to when I was a kid. Like it was very difficult to break into the Welsh team as a schoolboy, because they picked the same group of lads every year. They don't want to break. And I do get it to a certain extent, but no matter how good you would never get in that space, because they don't want to break up that group. And like, just a very quick, I don't want to talk about too much about me, but my youngest son, who I mentioned, he went for a trial with the county last season, or the season before lockdown. And he scored, I think, 4 or 5 goals in the, he scored like between 3 and 5 goals. I forget how many it was. In the trial, he played very well. He had a few assists playing on the wing. He couldn't have done more.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So he's come off, and it was the first trial. So the first trial is for people who don't play for a county, and then the second trial, I think they bring in the county players from last year.
Right.
And then he came off, and he said to me, "How do I do, Dad?" And I said, "Mate, you couldn't have done it any more. If you get in, you get in, but you could not have done more. You're one of the best players there on your team."
Yeah.
Didn't even get to the second trial because they picked the same squad that they had from the last 2 years. Now, I'm not saying that he's good enough to be in that squad. I'm not saying that he should be in the squad or anything like that. I probably think, in fact, he's probably just not quite good enough. But if you have a trial, the whole point of a trial is you pick those players on how they do in the trial situation.
It's on the day, yeah.
So if he goes in and he does what he did, and there's a boy there who you know is a better player, but he has an absolute nightmare and nothing goes right for him, then you pick the boy who did well.
Of course you do.
That's the point of the trial. But
that totally. I'd say, and sadly, that is the way that certainly schoolboy football is. I think it's different abroad. I think, you know, they do it on a more even and fairly basis. But yeah, you're dead right. If you're having a trial, and your lad or whoever's lad has an absolute stormer, then he's got to be picked better than the kid who they think is a better player, but unfortunately on the day, didn't perform. You know, that's what football's all about. If I'm a footballer, I'm in the team, or playing for Cardiff, and we get beat 2-0 by Blackburn or Preston or whoever, and I don't have a very good game, I know I'll be dropped for the next game, because the lad who's waiting to get into my play has had a good game in the reserves, and that's where it becomes more fair. You know, professionally, and that's how it should be. You should never pick people because, he's got a good reputation, and we know he is a good player. It's what you do game by the old saying, you're only as good as your last game.
Spot on, 100%.
And that's how it should be.
Same as a job interview or anything else, isn't it? How you do on the day. It's that jobs for the boys mentality, which I don't like. And I feel like the Welsh FA have had that problem at certain points over the years. And I think for a certain amount of time, I think recent years it's got a bit better. But for a few years, I think it was holding the Welsh football team back, that they wouldn't look to an Englishman to lead the Welsh team if he was the best. I'm not saying there was a particular one, but like they were quite close-minded in their selection process.
Yes, definitely.
Right, but David, let's get back to you. I could talk to you for hours, and this is my problem. Is like I could talk to you for hours and hours. But you represented Wales at schoolboy level. Do you remember the first time you got that call to say you were in the squad?
Yeah. Now everything we've just been talking about, I can relate to that, because again, the first trial was at Newport. And I had an absolute blinder. You know, my father, I tell you what, my father was very clever because he said, listen, wear orange socks. I said, what do you mean, Dad? He said, you'll be noticed. Wear orange socks. It was things that the old people used to come across and say. Anyhow, I did. I had a really good trial, and I got through to the final trials. On the day, again, I had a really, really good game. And my father said, I think you're going to get picked. I could hear people talking on the sidelines. I think you're going to get picked. Anyhow, it came to picking the team, not in it. And when I looked at the boys, of course, you know all the kids' names, you know it. And no disrespect again, but part of the Welsh Schoolboys Selection Committee, there was a guy from Anglesey. Now, when you're on the selection panel, I think there's about 6 or 7 of them, they like to have a boy from their area.
Yeah.
Now, the kid from Anglesey, I knew I was head and shoulders above him. He was a midfield player, and yet he was picked before me. But for some, and that was the last game Wales were playing against England, funny enough.
Mm.
This kid got injured in training. I had a phone call on the Thursday to say, can you get to Stockport? You've been called into the Welsh squad because whatever this lad's name was has got injured.
No.
Of course, I'm delighted. My dad drove me up there. I wasn't picked to start the game. I was sub. But after 10 minutes, again, a midfield player got injured and I came on. And I tell you what, I had, although we lost 4-0, in that England team was Glenn Hoddle, Ray Wilkins, Wilf Rostron, who played for Sunderland and Arsenal, John Truick, who played for West Brom. They had a really good side. And I think out of the Welsh team, the only 2 boys to ever make it was myself and a lad called Carl Harris, who was from Neath. And he went to Leeds United. I've lost you, Simon.
No, sorry. I had an issue with one of my children. Sorry, mate.
Okay.
I just muted myself so I could tell him off. Sorry, I was listening to you as well. I did it. That must have been like a phenomenal, feeling for a young boy, like being in that Wales squad. And I mean, like, again, if I just was kind of related to myself, I was super proud to represent Glamorgan at county level, and I just was never quite there for I just missed out on the Welsh level, and that was at the time it didn't really bother me. No. But like when I look back now, I think I would have liked to have just once represented Wales.
Yes.
To be able to say I could.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to that game, we lost 4-0 at Stockport. England with a fantastic schoolboy team, but I came out showered. You're given your shirt and you're given the cap, and that was like, it was like a block of gold. I had that, and I came out. My dad was there, and I showed him, and he put it in a bag. And then about 4 or 5 scouts came over. I'm a scout for Leeds. And the one guy was from Man United, who was actually from Cardiff. His name was Ray Kingdom. And he said, look, we're very, very impressed. We want David to go to Old Trafford next week. And my dad said, listen, he's been at Cardiff since he's been 10. If he's going to make it, he'll make it at Cardiff City. I don't want him going to Man United. And it's the best thing my dad ever, because obviously as a 15-year-old kid, your hair's on your neck stand up. Man United want you to go up there and whatever. But my dad phoned Jimmy Schooler, and he said, look, these scouts have been chasing him. And Jimmy Schooler said, listen, I didn't know he was ready to leave school. And I was 15, and, I could leave. You could leave school at 15 in those days. So Jimmy Schooler said, tell him to come Monday, and we'll get the apprenticeship forms. And that's when it all started for me. And I was very, very proud of that, because I never, ever wanted to play for anyone else in the world other than Cardiff City.
Yeah, I can imagine that being an incredible moment, knowing that you've gone from being like a youth team player or an academy player to getting the nods to say, right, this is you now, this is your job. Yeah. So come and play for your hometown club. It's one of those, isn't it? It's like what dreams are made of.
Yes.
Just, if we quickly sort of rewind, do you remember the first Cardiff game you watched as a kid?
As a kid, I was a regular. To be honest, when you say that, Phil Dwyer, a good mate, so we would, he'd come round, he'd only live around the corner, so he'd knock my door, we'd go into the game. We didn't have any money, so it used to go round the back of the bob bank and climb up the drain pipe. And then you'd have older boys or blokes at the top put their hand down and pull you up. But as a kid, that saw a lot of games where Cardiff, and with that great Cardiff team with Gary Bell and Dave Carver, Don Murray, probably the player who I think could play today for Cardiff. And if Cardiff are going to get to the Premier Division again, it's something they need to think about. Jimmy Schooler signed a footballing centre-back or a sweeper called Brian Harris. This guy transformed Cardiff City. He actually was playing out from the back, passing into the midfield players. Brian Harris had won the FA Cup with Everton. He came from Everton. An absolute brilliant player. And again, obviously, I was there when they beat Real Madrid and Brian Clark scored. Running on the pitch with thousands of other kids and tapping the players on the back, and that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And again, something it won't ever happen again. Cardiff City beat Real Madrid.
Yes,
the superstars of Europe. Yeah, it was and then in the summer, school holidays, going to watch them train. It was always Cardiff, but. Just a quick one. I'm remembering things now. I remember coming home from school. John Toshak was an apprentice, but he was 16. He just got into the Cardiff City team. Whatever people think of Tosh, because what he did down at Swansea, his career at Cardiff was phenomenal, was second to none.
Incredible.
He made his debut as a 16-year-old. I think he scored 80-odd goals in 100 appearances for Cardiff. It was. But I was coming home from school. I was 12 years of age, walking down my road, and I could see an ambulance there. It was outside my house in Dorset Street. And I thought, oh, my God, I hope it's not my mum or my dad or whatever. As we got closer, this guy is lying in the pavement, screaming in agony. What it was, my dad, for 20-odd years, probably you wouldn't remember this sign, but behind the canteen stand at Ninian Park, there was a social club called the Bluebirds Club.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, the Bluebirds Club. And my dad played in the resident band there for 20 years. He was the drummer and the singer. And of course, like in our house, there was always music and singing going on. We had a piano in the front room, and he was giving this piano to the Bluebirds Club. So the club sent the apprentices with a groundsman with a tractor and trailer to the house to collect it. As the boys and the groundsman are lifting it on, the piano slipped and it's fallen on Toshak's leg and broken his leg.
Oh, no.
Oh, Jimmy Schooler went absolutely, well, you can imagine, he went ballistic. It was all in the paper, and, it was terrible. And he was out for quite a few months. But ironically, later on in life, when I played for Swansea, the Swansea lads used to say, go on, Charlie, shout down to Tosh, shout down to... and he used to hate it, Tosh. I used to go, hey, Tosh, do you know the piano's on your foot? You hum it and I'll play it, son. He used to turn round and go... absolutely give me daggers as a look. But that's a true story. The piano from our house,
amazing,
fell on his leg and broke his leg.
Broke John Toshak's leg.
Yeah.
Incredible. That is mad. So you were 16 when you signed or 15 when you signed for Cardiff as an apprentice. You went on to make 59 appearances and 3 goals in that spell. You had a good 4 years as a senior player, if you like. Do you remember your debut for Cardiff?
Yes.
First team debut for Cardiff?
Yeah, a league debut. My debut was against, again, in the old Welsh Cup, which Cardiff are not in now, was against Oswestry Town. And we beat them 4-0. I actually scored. I scored the first goal. So that was brilliant. And that's when, on the Friday, Jimmy Andrews called me. He said, I'm going to play you tomorrow. So we're playing Notts Forest away. It'd be a great occasion for you, playing at the City Ground. And Brian Clough had just taken over there. So, and Notts Forest, because he came from Derby, he brought John O'Hare, his captain, who he took everywhere. Archie Gemmill was there. And about I would say 5-6 players that came to that Nottingham Forest team that won the first division, then won the European Cup as well. Yeah. But on the day, we drew 0-0 and we gave a great account of ourselves. In fact, Peter Sayer, and when we all had a go with him afterwards, he should have scored. The last 4 or 5 minutes, he was inside the penalty area, shot, open goal, and he hit the post. Oh, but it was one of them things with Leo, we used to call him. Peter Sayer, Leo Sayer, that was his nickname. But it was great walking down the tunnel, and again, something I always remember, Simon. And you look back in your career, and and I told my father about this, and he said, "God," he said, "that's fantastic, son. That someone like Brian Clough coming down the tunnel." Brian Clough put his arm around me, walking down the tunnel, and put his arm around, looked at me, he said, "Well played, young man." Mm-hmm. Now Brian
one
Clough,
to remember, isn't it?
Oh God, for Brian Clough to say that, because he was a great player himself. He played for England as well. Turned out to be one of the best managers that England have ever had. That sadly never got the England job because of his honesty, straightforward talking, and he wouldn't take no nonsense. But
and the jobs for the boys. They don't want people who will rock the apple cart.
Exactly. That's right.
That's what me and you were talking about before we started recording, David, about punditry and radio and TV and stuff. Is you don't always get those jobs. It's changing a little bit, but you don't always get the big jobs if you're too honest, almost. And
totally right.
It's
totally
unfortunate.
Right.
It's unfortunate.
Listen. Good luck to him, but there's a lot of lads I see on the telly, and they're talking about a game I've watched, and I'm thinking, I'm going to say, yeah, you watched a different game here, because they're trying to make out it was a good game and an exciting game. It was absolutely garbage.
I think I could count the genuine, like, really good pundits on one hand, probably. Like, I think Roy Keane is very good. I think
he's my favourite.
Guy Neville, Jamie Carragher are pretty good. I like Mika Richards as well.
Very good.
And probably on BT, Rio Ferdinand, and then I think after that I'm struggling a little bit. And I do don't get me wrong, like, there's a couple of boys who I really liked, like Robbie Savage. I quite like listening to him talk, but I don't always enjoy his punditry, because I just feel, come on, like, give an honest opinion.
Yes, exactly.
Don't trot out the cliches and
no. So what they're basically trying to do, Simon, is please the club and please the player.
Sit on the fence,
when they bump into him, you're sad, so they're mates with everyone. That's not the way to be. Roy Keane is the best.
That's not their job either, is it? It's not their. They're not footballers anymore. Their job is to analyse the games. And to do that, sometimes you've got to criticise people because they've had a bad game. You're not criticising the person, you're criticising the performance.
And players, Simon, I'm telling you now, even players today, well, I'm sure they would. I hope it hasn't changed that much. But back in my day, you'd rather, because you had a bad game.
Yes.
I wouldn't want someone writing in the paper saying, "Oh, what a game he had, 8 out of 10," and I know I was shocking. And so, listen, players can accept it, and that's what they need. But then it's down to the player to sort it out if you're not dropped for the next game and put it right.
Indeed. So, Nick, I wanted to ask you, what was the hardest part of your playing career? Was there a spell where you were struggling with form, or you were injured, or just where you were, like, you found it particularly difficult? But before we kind of touch on that, I just wanted to ask you, what was it like to leave Cardiff City that first time in 1978? Was that difficult? Because obviously you were a Cardiff boy. It was your dream to play for Cardiff City. You know, like, I know I say only, like, you made 59 appearances, which is phenomenal. But obviously, I'm sure when you got into that first team as a kid, you were dreaming of making hundreds of appearances for Cardiff City.
Yes,
So was that disappointing and difficult to deal with, leaving them?
To be honest, Simon, it was my decision because sadly, the club were going nowhere, and to me, they looked like they didn't want to go anywhere. We seemed to be changing chairman every couple of years. No one was investing in money. I remember we came back.
That went on for a few years after that, David, I think, as well, didn't it?
Exactly. And again with my dad, and we talked about it. And I said, Dad, if I want to really, make a good name for myself and be a regular player, I think I've got to leave Cardiff because the team is struggling. And the type of player I was a creative midfield player, stroke striker, playing off the front two. I needed to play in a team that were playing good football. We had good players around us.
Yeah.
But the club were investing in signing no quality players. It was always free transfers, players who were at the end of their careers. And I remember going in to see Richie Morgan and having this conversation. And in all fairness to Richie, he's a Cardiff man as well. He's a clinician guy. And he looked at me and he said, I can understand what you're saying, son. He said, look, I'll speak to the directors, I'll speak to the chairman. If we get an offer that we think is fair, we'll consider it. Within a couple of weeks, Wrexham, and this is how I got to go to Wrexham, they'd sold Mickey Thomas to Man United.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise, but Alvin Griffiths had come 2 or 3 times to watch me playing in the reserves. And he took me to Wrexham as that replacement for Mickey Thomas. Now, that was a big pair of shoes to fill, Mickey Thomas.
Gotcha.
But you know what? Alvin Griffiths was absolutely brilliant for me. I learned so much. And I was only there 9-10 months, Wrexham. Had such a good time. He taught me so much about the position I played in, the same as him. Because Alvin was a Welsh international, smashing player. He scored goals. He knew when to get into the box, when not to. And that's what happened. Within 10 months, Tosh had gone to Swansea. They were on the climb. They just got into, as it was, the old second division. And they made Wrexham an offer for me. And I was, at first, I thought, I didn't even think about, the Cardiff, Swansea and whatever else. Because I looked at it, it's coming back home. I'll be, my family in Cardiff, and then driving down there.
A lot closer than Wrexham, isn't it?
Well, it is. It was, but I was so grateful to Wrexham to giving me. And when I was at Wrexham, I remember Alvin Griffiths said, he said, look, we're not going to let you go, but Bill McGarry at Newcastle has made an offer for you. Now again, Newcastle United is a well-known team, a big club. It's they're passionate fans. It's certainly going back to when I was a young boy. Newcastle were always challenging to win things, and we're up there with the top teams. And Wrexham didn't do it, but then obviously Tosh came in and Swansea made a better offer. But then I realised when I signed for Swansea, and Robbie James, who was a good friend of mine, Robbie, because he was a schoolboy at Cardiff, and Cardiff wanted to sign him, but his dream was to play for Swansea City. Yeah. So he said, did you realise what you've done? I went, yeah, I've signed. He went, well, you're a Cardiff City player signing for Swansea City. He said, you're going to get a bit of stick off the Swansea fans. He said, and I should imagine when you go back to Cardiff, you'll get a bit of stick off the Cardiff fans as well. But, I've always looked at that sign that Cardiff's my club. I'm a Cardiff boy. Born and bred here, and I'll die, and I'll be buried in Cardiff. And I didn't want to play for anyone else starting off. But when you go to another club, you have to be honest. You're being paid by that club, and I think fans appreciate if you do your best and give your all. They'll warm to you and take to you. And as it was, Toshak again, he was fantastic. And he turned me into this Kevin Keegan type player, playing off him. And I went to especially when I first went, before I got a nasty injury. When I went there, I was scoring goals for fun. I think that between Christmas and the end of the season, I think I scored 13 goals or whatever, and it was really, really exciting. It was probably the most exciting part of my career because it was everything. That's the team I wanted. With that type of play, there were seven Welsh internationals in that team, along with 2 Yugoslav internationals at the time. Obviously, Yugoslavia is broken up now. Yeah, of course. And people like Tommy Craig and Bob Latchford. You had a Scottish international and Latchford an English international. The team was just dripping with class players, and it was great to be playing with them guys.
they were looking, you look at those players they've signed, they had the likes of Toshak and Robbie James and all these different players they've got in their squad. They're looking to play a certain type of football, which you were never going to get at Cardiff City at that point in time. Like you said, Cardiff didn't have the ambition to go and progress like where Swansea were at that point.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to play with your brother like a first team game alongside him?
Do you know what? Not at. He was a pro at Cardiff with me, but no, he never got into the first team when I was there. Just after I left, he got into the first team. Obviously, he never went to Swansea. But when I completed the 4 Welsh clubs, when I went to Newport, Paul signed for Newport. He came back from Holland and signed for Newport. And we actually played in a Welsh Cup match together against the Cardiff team, against Cardiff Corinthians. So it's the first and only time that me and Paul actually played, together for one club. Yeah. But that was great. Yeah, it was great.
You played. You had a couple of seasons at Swansea, playing 54 games, scored 13 goals. Sounds like those goals all came in quite a purple patch for you. You mentioned you had a nasty injury. Did you have Did you go on loan to Leyton Orient when you were coming back from the injury? Was it or? Yes,
I'll tell you what happened. It was 1980. I was flying, just broken into the Welsh team. Where on my debut, playing for Wales, we beat England at Wrexham 4-1, which you can imagine that's your debut. Do you know that the great thing about that as well, Simon? That day, it was Mike England's first game as manager. And by the way, I played with Mike at Cardiff in 77. Okay. Cool. He came to Cardiff, so I knew Mike. And Mike England was my dad told me. Well, I used to watch Mike. Terry Venables said at one time Mike England was the best centre half in the world when he was playing for Tottenham. So a footballing centre back. So it was Mike's first game. He picked me for my first cap. Another lad called Paul Price, who was at Luton at the time, that went to Tottenham. It was his debut. But a lot of people, I don't think they remember it. Sadly, he's no longer with us. He was a really good mate of mine from Cardiff. He was my best man when I got married. Keith Ponting came on at half-time because Dave Jones, not the Dave Jones that managed Cardiff, Dave Jones, who played for Norwich, who was involved a few years earlier. Remember Joe Jordan handled the ball?
Yeah.
Well, Dave Jones was marking him, and Joe Jordan to this day said it was him when Dave Jones's hands are down by his side. But Dave Jones snapped his cruciate ligaments in that England game. So Pont came on. So it's even more phenomenal. We beat England 4-1, and they'd beaten Argentina on the Tuesday, who were world champions at Wembley 2-0. And they were taking it thinking, this one's in the bag. They rested Keegan, and they played Tony Woodcock and Paul Manning up front. Not very good players, were they? But
no. Well, at the end of the day, I bet the celebrations for you guys was a good couple of days after that, surely. Because
I think we were all
your debut, your mate's debut, all these things coming together so well. Must have been a lovely time.
We were still drunk, I think, on the train going up to Scotland on the Tuesday because we were playing Scotland. Then on the Wednesday was the home internationals, and everyone was still celebrating and on a high. And that was an absolutely unbelievable time. But going back, I say with the injury, it was actually 40 years ago, round about this time. Wales beat Czech Republic the other night, 1-0. Well, we played Czechoslovakia, which was the whole country. Now, Czechoslovakia in 76, they won the European Championships.
They're a very, very good side, didn't they?
Oh, great side. That I don't know whether you can remember, or you probably have seen it. They had a midfield player called Anton Panenka, and he took the penalty when he ran up to smash it, and he just toe poked it, and it bounced in. Well, he was playing, but I got injured.
Those penalties are named after now, isn't it? Where the players do their little dink into the middle of the goal. Yeah, the Panenka. Yeah, that's what it is. Amazing. But we played in that game. First half, Mickey Thomas went down the line, pulled it back. Was at the Grange end. Controlled it with my right. Just pushed it in with my left. It was a simple goal, really. They weren't marking me, but I scored the goal. Wales were winning 1-0.
just before half time, and I could see the midfield player come in. I was going down the line, I pushed it past the fullback. I had a fair bit of pace then, so I flew past him. Another lad came over, I jumped, but as I jumped, my left leg was trailing behind me, and this guy came in and caught me on my left ankle. I thought he was broke at the time. I was carried off. They took me straight to hospital. As it wasn't broken, but it was, and back in 1980, Simon, you know, technology, you know, the medical side, they didn't have the know-how. So I was in plaster for about 9 weeks, and then I came out of plaster, and I kept saying to the physio, look, it doesn't feel right. I can't feel my foot. I can't, they haven't got that feel. You kick a ball and there was nothing there. So that's when Tosh sent me to Orient for 3 games. And I scored a couple of goals for them as well on loan. In 3 games, I scored 2 goals, but came back. But I just never had that zip anymore. And Leighton James, in all fairness, was in the Swansea team, and Alan Curtis, you know, and they were doing so well that I knew my time was limited. And I've always believed that I'm not going to sit around. I'm not going to sit in the stand and take money off this club and people who pay to come and watch, players play for nothing. I never ever believed in it. I was always taught by the old pros, listen, son, when you've played 300 games, you can say you've made it. And that was something that always drove me on, you know. And when I got to the 300 game mark, I looked at myself and I thought, yeah, you've made it. But that's how I came to leave Swansea and go to Crystal Palace, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time there as well, Sam. You know, I managed to work out a way of playing with this my left leg feeling not right. Yeah, get out, if you like. Yeah.
Sorry, I was talking to my son.
Okay.
I'm really sorry.
That's okay.
He's sneaking in behind me to get something out of the room.
Well, let him in.
No.
Come on, bring him in.
Shoot him.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Tell him to come in.
He's he's all right. But like that's bad. You only played 3 games for Leighton Orient, mate, but you scored 2 goals in those 3 games as well. Like that's quite the impression. And then next was Crystal Palace. So you're moving out of Wales really for the first time. Because obviously Leighton Orient was a loan move. It was only a couple of games.
Yeah.
You had 2 good years at Crystal Palace. You know, 88 games. That was the most amount of games you played for any one club, apart from obviously Cardiff, where you had the 2 stints. What was it like living in the big smoke, as it were?
I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I you know, at first, you know, I'm married, got a young wife, and 2 young kids. You know, and you think, my God, how are we going to deal with London? But I was lucky because at the time in the Welsh, at Crystal Palace was Peter Nicholas. And where I ended up buying a house in West Wickham, Nico just lived around the corner. So that was easy to adapt. But, it's a different world. And even to this day, I always remember that, you know, the Londoners, the players, you know, and I want to go so-and-so, I want to go and see that. Because you're in London, you want to go and see things. Oh, don't worry, Jarlo, it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, that's all. But, well, an hour later, you still haven't got to this place. Londoners, they say 15, 20 minutes is an hour, really. But they say it's only 15, 20 minutes. It's absolutely... But yeah, and it was busy with the traffic. Used to get the train into London, you know, and go and see shows. I saw Tom Jones at the Albert Hall. That was a great experience. And the manager was great. You know, at Crystal Palace, the ex-England player, captain of England, captain of Tottenham, Alan Mullery. Okay. So yeah, he was great, and he was great with me. He believed in me, and that's how I played a lot of games. And I was gutted when he got the sack.
Yeah, I could have stayed. Then, when if you've got a manager who believes in you, or you know, fancies you as a player, when they go, and you just don't know if the new manager's going to have the same view as you, and it must
exactly. It was, and to be honest, because I'd given my word, it was the biggest mistake. You asked me earlier what was the toughest time. This was the biggest, toughest time for me, and I'd never been in this position before, but. Because Alan Mullery was going, I said to the chairman, I said, look, you know, I want to leave. I totally disagree with getting rid of the manager. I said, he's done really well. We managed, you know, we had a bit of a tough time, but we stayed up, and he had things in place for next year, players he was going to bring in, which he'd mentioned to a few of us. and it was going to be really exciting. But the chairman at the time of Palace, Ron Nodes, who was a property developer, really, he got rid of it. And I had a phone call from the Birmingham manager, Ron Saunders, who just left Aston Villa and taken over at Birmingham. He said, look, I really fancy you, and get the train up and we'll have a chat. So I got the train from London up to Birmingham, and when I met him, you know, and he said, you know, I saw the goal just go for Palace, and I've seen you a few times. I think you're what I want. So we shook hands, and I said, yes, you know, I'll come back later on in the summer and sign for you. In the meantime, Palace appointed Steve Coppell. He sent for me. He said, look, David, I know you've had a word with the chairman, you want to go, but I want you to stay. You know, I really think that there's a place in the team for you. I've known you playing against it for England, and, you know, I know all about you. And I looked him in the eyes and I said, Steve, this is nothing against you. I said, but this is just me personally. I've given my promise to another manager, Ron Saunders, and I'd feel awful if I went back on that. You know, that's not me. And he looked fair to Steve Coppell. He stood up, he said, son, he said, if there was more people like you in football, it'd be a better game. I totally respect what you're doing. He shook my hand and he said, and I wish you all the best. Amazing. I went to Birmingham and I never played again.
Yeah, what happened with that? I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. Because obviously just the information I've got in front of me in terms of the stats of your career, it said 84 to 85, Birmingham City, no games, no. Yeah,
no goals, no nothing. Because basically I went there and played a few practice matches. We went on tour to Europe, was playing left side of midfield, came in, had a couple of shots, and I go, no, stay wide. So anyway, after the game, he said, look, I'm telling you, if you don't stay wide, you won't be in the team. I said, hang on a sec now, Gaffer. You've signed me. You've seen me play. That's part of my makeup. If the ball's on the other side, if I see an opening or an opportunity to burst into the box, surely getting numbers in the box, we've got a chance to score. I don't want you going in there. You stay wide. We had a big argument, and do you know what? And he was the wrong person to cross, really, Ron Saunders, because all the stories you've heard about him and how tough he was, it was even harder. And I used to have to go back in the afternoons and train on my own. He gave me an absolute dog's life. And I don't think that's the one time, you know, when you're like 28, 29 years of age, being treated, I'm a Welsh international, I've got a bit of respect in the game. People know me. And I'm being treated like a dog, really. And there was no remorse for him, he never ever said, look, if you do this, I'll have you back in the team.
Yeah.
You know, and anyhow, I went to see him. I said, look, he said, enough's enough. You've won. I'm going home. I'm miserable with my family and my kids. I don't want to be here. You don't want me here. Get me out of here. And that's how I ended up coming back to Newport, and that was funny going there. I met Colin Addison in the services just outside Birmingham. Now Newport had nothing, absolutely nothing, but I actually enjoyed going there. But I don't know what it was with me and managers. I must have been the kiss of death, because I signed for Colin. I scored on my debut for Newport, and then all of a sudden, 6 weeks into being at Newport and with Colin, and Colin had a bad illness. He had a virus attacked his nervous system, and he basically had to finish. And again, they brought another guy in, Bobby Smith, who I wasn't a fan of. He was one of these guys. He was all mouth and trousers, and he used to try and ridicule players and have a go at players. And a funny story: we were in a hotel playing away, and Mark Kendall, who played. I think Mark had one cap for Wales, but he ex-Tottenham goalkeeper, and then Mark was always remembered by the derby game, Arsenal-Tottenham, where Liam Brady have hit this shot from 30 yards, bent it with the outside of his left foot, and Mark Kendall is running across the goal as if he's got divers boots on. You know, he can't move, and he's flown into the top corner. And he always gets ridiculed by that. And I think it was unfair, really, to remember him like that, because he was a good goalkeeper. But anyhow, Mark was on the phone to his wife in reception, and Bobby Smith, who was all, hey, do you want to do this? And he went, hey, you, Kendall, You want to put the phone down, leave it alone, leave it alone. So Mark Kendall said to his wife, hang on a sec, love. He said, hey, Bobby, he said, pity you didn't phone your wife a bit more because you may still be married. Bobby Smith went as red as a beetroot. That's the only time I've ever seen anyone shut him up. But the great thing about that time was again being there. I wasn't enjoying it at Newport only because of this guy. I was playing, but I wasn't enjoying it. Things were tough at Newport. That you get paid on the Friday, the bank would phone you up, or the checks bounced. You know, and you'd go in and see him, and he'd say, "Don't say nothing, because I've had the other 15 in here as well now." All of that, you know, so you're not getting paid. You got bills to pay, and the PFA were trying to sort it out. And I thought, I don't need this. And I phoned up Alan Durbin at Cardiff. He said, "Look," he said, again, Cardiff didn't have a lot. He said, "But I'll have you back." He said, "But all I would say, son," he said, "I don't want you coming back here. You won't be playing in midfield. I need a left back. And with your experience and know-how, I think you can do the job for me." And do you know what? That second period at Cardiff was probably, as a player, the most exciting time, obviously, was at Swansea because what we achieved and the goals I was scoring and fantastic football the team was playing. For personal enjoyment, those 50-odd games I played for Cardiff at left-back when I came back. And I think the fans appreciated me as well because at the end of the season, I was voted Player of the Year. You know, playing at left back. Yeah, and I won Young Player of the Year in 1974 for Cardiff, and I won Player of the Year, I think, in 1988.
Amazing.
But I'll always be grateful for Cardiff City and the people at the club for giving me that opportunity to come back and finish my career there. Finish at the club that I loved and supported as a kid, that I wanted to play for, and I did, and I came back, and do you know what? My career, it couldn't have worked out any better to start and finish with your hometown club. And I'll always be grateful to the club for that, always.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you had a phenomenal playing career, really, when you look at it. Just the dream for a Welshman. Like, you played for Wales, you played for all the Welsh clubs. You got to go and try living up in London as well. I think, it just looks like a phenomenal experience and living the dream. But you did have a little stint in management within the Welsh League system.
Yeah.
But you generally, post-career, you transitioned more into the media side of things, really.
Yeah.
Was that like just a way of circumstance in that's what came up? Or was it something which you sort of wanted to do, media over management sort of thing?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a bit about the management thing. Again, I'm the type of person, I think I know the game. I was very aware of skillful play and how you want your players to play, attacking play, and that's not taking nothing away because there's an art to defending, and you've always got to have a solid back four or defenders that can defend. That's their job, is defend first. If you get the playing and passing, it comes as a bonus. Yeah. But I passed, and I think I was probably one of the first players in the South Wales area. I passed my full coaching badge in 1990. In those days, you used to have to go to Aberystwyth for a fortnight. And I think there was like 30 or 40 lads on the course, all desperate to pass it. But the Welsh FA, they didn't hand out full badges, willy-nilly. You really had to know your stuff to get it. And there was 3 people that passed it. That's myself. I meant to mention this to Andy the other night. He'd know him. A guy called David Armstrong, who played for Middlesbrough, Southampton and England, a midfield player. But the other one, and I have to say, who never played, he wasn't a player, and he didn't have a very good, when he managed in the Welsh League, but he did very, very well being a Welsh coach, was Ossian Roberts.
Yes.
Now me and David Armstrong, and we said to him, that we bumped into Ossian. We said, we got you your full badge because he couldn't go in there, he couldn't pass, he couldn't trap the ball or whatever. So if you were given whether you're part of the course, right, organise a sweeper or organise a front sweeper or creating space in midfield, Ossian couldn't do it because he wasn't comfortable on the ball. So he would get me and David Armstrong to, to do his stuff for him. And of course, we wouldn't say no. We helped him out, and he was grateful for that. But it's funny, I never had a mate, and that's what you needed to get into football. So you needed a mate to get you in somewhere, to get you in as a U team coach or reserve team coach. Yes. And when I bumped into to Dave Armstrong later on, I was working for a local radio station, Real Radio in Cardiff. He was working, that's right. He was working for a radio station down in Southampton where he'd stayed and he was living. And he said, "Why didn't we ever get a job, Dave?" He said. I said, "Well, I had no one to get me in, Dave." He said, "Exactly." He said, I phoned around and, tried to get in, but it was difficult to break in. And it's sad in a way because I did feel I had something to offer in coaching, and the non-league teams I coached, and even to this day, when I bump into players or people were involved, they always say, "Oh, you were really good. We done really well." I know me and my brother at Barry Town, when we won the League of Wales, we were the first managers to win the League of Wales for Barry Town. And I think we won 43 games undefeated. So at any level of football, that's
very, very good, isn't it?
A great achievement. But like you say, with the media work, I wanted to do something else. I wanted to put my opinion over and for people to hear me. And I phoned Real Radio and I said, "Look, I'm an ex-player and I'm a Cardiff boy and I live here." And they just started. And this guy who was in charge of Real Radio, then Gareth Setter, he said, "Come down," and we had a chat. And he said, "So what are your memories as a kid?" And I said, "Well, at the England team." He said, "Can you name that England team?" Of course, I rattled it off. Banks, all the players. George Cohen, Jack Charlton, Bobby Moore, Ray Wilson, Alan Ball. I won't go through it all, but I knew him all. He went, "Great, Dave, great." He said, "Come along and we'll give you a go." Now, straight away, and he was brilliant. We did the show, and I thought it went really well. But I don't know what it is with ex-players or with players, even now, when players get interviewed, for some reason they'll be asked the question, and the way they answer is, well, I thought we played well today, and next week, and I kept saying, and he take the show. He said, "Listen, stop repeating and saying that because it don't sound very good." Probably the best advice anyone in radio or being a pundit ever gave me. And I went on.
It's hard. It is hard though, because I get into habits, because with these shows, I want them to be a relaxed conversation. I want them to be natural.
Yes.
So often I will slip into like little sort of slang or Cardiffisms that I would speak in my normal day-to-day life, and I have to catch myself because I repeat myself, or I say things which I say all the time. I think quite a lot of the time I say obviously a lot, and it is difficult to get out of those habits.
Yes.
Other people who aren't from the area notice it a lot more. I think like someone who knows you day to day or is from the same area probably wouldn't even notice it.
No, exactly.
Like, but you're right. Footballers generally, they have got that like same thing as what I was saying about Cardiff, and there's all different parts of the country have got their various little things, and I think footballers have just got that. Is and must be difficult because footballers obviously they have to answer the same questions over and over again.
Of course they do.
But I mean, I remember you on Real Radio, and I thought you were very good. And this is one of the reasons why I said to you, I really enjoyed the show with you on Monday. And all of my favorite guests on any of my shows, which I've done so many, like over nearly 450 odd shows on different subjects.
Yeah.
Like, my favorite guests are the ones who are honest, and no matter how uncomfortable that can make them sometimes. Like, if I've done a show on mental health, we did mental health in sports series where myself and my co-host, series 2, we had footballers on, ex-footballers, and one current footballer as well, which I thought for a current footballer to come on and talk about he had PTSD from he had anaphylactic shock during a game, and he came on and he talked about having PTSD. That's to me is really brave, because not many current players would come on and bare all and say how vulnerable they feel. And I just thought it was phenomenal. But like all that, we had Keith Gillespie and we had Chris Kirkland, all these different footballers talking openly about addiction and mental health. But it sounds almost morbid to say I loved it. But what I loved about it is not that they had problems, of course. It was the honesty and the how personal and how you can kind of have a real conversation. And that's what I like, is real conversations, not not like trotting out, we said it earlier, not trotting out cliches and things.
Exactly.
Like we've gone over the hour. I'm not too worried about that, because like it's my show, so I can go as long as I want. But also, like, I've just loved talking to you, David, reliving, some aspects of your career and your life, and hearing you as I can see you almost see your brain ticking as you remember things, and you're like, oh, and this and that. To me, as a person, as a fan, especially as a Cardiff fan and a fan of yours, I'm like, that's just great for me. I enjoy it so much. What are you doing now, David? Just to finish us off, are you doing any sort of writing or anything? Because obviously you did a bit for the Echo, didn't you, before?
Yes. That's going back in early the 2008 or 2011, I think it was. But now and again they get me on BBC Wales on a Saturday. They have a phone in after the games.
Yeah.
Rob Phillips, who's the guy there. It's called Call Rob. And they'll have different ex-players or people on, and people phone in and they ask questions and they ask what you think, and you just give your opinion. But as far as I've retired now, Simon, I'm at home putting my feet up. Well, I've got a dog, a retriever, so that she keeps me busy. To take me out, and I enjoy that with her. Yeah.
Retired and loving it, some would say. But you know what BBC Wales needs, David, is what they need is an Andy Campbell Cardiff City show.
Oh, with
myself and Andy having a phone in for an hour. I think that'd be great. But
listen, right, what you said earlier, I'm not just saying this, like you said about the same people, the same thing. Rob Phillips, I think
he's become very, very good.
But it's a bit stagnated. It's the same thing all the time. It needs, I feel, it needs younger people in there now, and you and Andy would be perfect for that.
Yeah, but
I really mean that.
I agree, by the way, but there's, for me, and this again is a personal opinion, there's no way I think that the BBC would touch me, because I've got no technical broadcast experience. Where Andy's an ex-player, so that's different. But like, for me, it's not what your experience is, it's what you can do and what you can bring to the role. And I believe that me and Andy could do that phenomenally well.
Oh, definitely.
Probably bring in viewers from outside Cardiff as well, because people who watch us on other stuff would come and check it out to just support us as they do. But it is what it is. But something, just to finish it off, something you said a couple of minutes ago about the managerial side of football, and the coaching side, why you didn't get into it, is who you know. If you know someone who can do it.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, same thing, son. Exactly if you know someone to get you in, same thing.
We go. Yeah. I'm happy. David, I thank you for your time, mate. I really do. It's been an absolute pleasure this week speaking to you for so long, for 2 shows. And I'm sure we'll get you on. There's actually something I want to speak to you about in a minute after we have this. I'll end the recording and I'll just have a quick, only take 2 minutes of your time.
Okay.
Something we've got planned for later this year, which I'd like to maybe get your 2 pence on. But until then, you can find us at youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation for videos on all sorts of subjects. Check us out, subscribe. That really helps us out. That's the most direct way to support us. You can also buy some merchandise. The link's in the description. We'll have another episode of My Story out next Sunday at 8 o'clock. Please join us. Please spread the words. Tell your friends. Tell people. Help us grow. We are growing. We're still small. We're self-funded, self-created. I do everything myself. Editing, everything like that. We promote ourselves. We are in the hands of the people. And thank you, and thank David again But we'll be back next week, and thank you for watching.
I do what I want when I want and how I want it. Leave you with the one in the air, that's how I roll. I got change to throw, I don't care about no gold. Better, so much better, flipping incredible. Always on the show so they know that I still got it. And I never feel sorry, yeah, top of the world. Top of the world. Yeah, top of the world.